Well, we had covered a podcast pointing out how white women were the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action. Yet you had white women like Abigail Fisher come out with Students for Fair Admissions to try to overturn affirmative action way before this case where they actually did it with college admissions. Well, I want you to hear what this particular white woman says about how white women will always choose whiteness over anything else. Let's go ahead and roll it.
I see a lot of people talking about the affirmative action ruling, and there's a lot of people pointing out that white women were actually some of the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action. And so people are kind of naturally asking, like, well, why did conservative white women vote for things that would take away, people who would take away things that are benefiting them? And I think that there's some things to be discussed here that we don't really talk about very often. One of those things is that regardless of party, white women will, the vast majority of the time, vote whiteness over gender, because we can still receive the runoff of the benefits that white men get or give themselves when they're in power. So white families will still benefit, and we might not make the same amount of money that white men make, and we might have our right to choose birth when we want to ripped away, but we will still always be the beneficiaries of white men in power. And so when we look at the way white men have structured our society to treat people who aren't white, we think, well, I don't want that. Like, this isn't great, but it's not that. And so because we don't really talk about that very often, because that requires people to dig underneath and really acknowledge privilege to talk about how racist they are. And this applies to liberal women as well. We will continuously see women, even liberal women, voting against their own interests because their primary identifier is white, and the thing that gives them the most privilege in this country is their relationship to white men. And the interesting part about that, even beyond this, is that white men kind of, as a whole, only really care for white women to the extent of what we can do for them. So the whole dynamic is pretty up, but yeah, just something that I don't think we really talk about very often.
Now, what this woman said, black women have paid attention to this in the last few election cycles. These white women get up here talking about, oh, they doing us this, they doing us that. And then when they go to the voting booth, they always choose white supremacy over gender, white supremacy over sisterhood, white supremacy, no matter how they men treat them. Because as she said, that at least if I choose white supremacy, I get the runoff of white supremacy, and at least I do not want to be treated like those black people. So for sure, I'm going to stay on team white supremacy. So it lets you know, of course, we know this as brothers, but let you sisters know that think you could join up with them for anything, that they're not your friend, they're not your ally, because they're always going to choose white supremacy over you, period. You may have an individual white woman that may be speaking the truth, like this lady in the video, and shout out to her for speaking the truth. But you better believe she is the exception, not the rule. You understand? So they always going to choose white supremacy because they look at it as a survival mechanism to choose white supremacy. They don't choose righteousness, they choose white supremacy. They don't choose equality, they choose white supremacy. They're not going to choose diversity, they're going to choose white supremacy. Understand? They're not going to ever side with you or side with me. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. Because this is what I say. At least they're supporting their men wholesale. So I can't say nothing about that. I mean, shoot, we should have, if we can work together as brothers and sisters and we had to support wholesale, shoot, it'd be even better for us too, right? But let me know what y'all think about what this woman is saying. Because some people, we can say it all day as black people, what she just said, and they're not going to listen to it or try to listen to it. But, when a white person said, oh, my Lord. So now since, this lady said it, are you going to believe it now that the women in their community will always side with white supremacy?